Good morning. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this morning's hearing. It's a request to rezone property to the Residential Plan Development Zoning District. All testimony and evidence I accept during these hearings must be taken in under oath. At the conclusion of my introductory remarks, I will administer the oath to everyone in the room at one time. The way the proceeding is going to go today is that we're going to start with the applicant's representative. They will present the request and explain how it is consistent with the county's land development regulations. Following their presentation, we will go to the county planner who prepared the staff report. In this case, their recommendation is for approval. At the conclusion of their presentation, I will open up the floor to members of the public. If you are here from the public, that is your opportunity to speak. You may ask any question that you wish to ask at that time. All questions will be written down and then responded to after we've heard from all members of the public. I am not the final decision maker in this case. At the conclusion of this hearing and the close of the record, I will review the testimony, evidence, transcripts, and all the documents, and I will prepare a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. They will be the final decision makers. Typically, their hearing is conducted about 3 or 4 weeks after I have released my recommendation. If you're a member of the public and you've provided us with your email on the public participation form, you will receive a copy of my recommendation, and you will also receive further notice once the board has scheduled the final hearing on this case. I think that's it. I'm going to administer the oath at this time. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you give today will be the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm ready to begin.
Madam Hearing Examiner, in anticipation of the testimony, we provided you with 2 copies of the PowerPoint, one for you to write on, one for your records, and a copy of the master concept plan.
Okay, thank you.
First person we'd like to call is Mr. Pritchett.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Rick Pritchett, and I am the, I don't know what the right word to use, but I'm in charge of the farm. This is the property that we own at 6601 Bayshore Road that we are proposing to zone the 73.5 acres to residential plan development. This property's been in our family since around 1950, and at one time this particular piece was planted in an orange grove in 1960, and it lived till about 1995, and since then has been a cow pasture. And at this time, the family believes it's time that we should rezone and possibly sell the property. So that's why we're here today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chris Scott is our first witness.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Chris Scott with Peninsula Engineering. I'm a certified planner, and it's been probably over a decade since I've presented before Lee County Hearing Examiner, so I'm not sure if I need to be requalified as an expert witness.
I'm not familiar with you, so if you don't mind just giving us a brief overview of your experience, and then we can just proceed from there.
Sure. So I have a bachelor's in urban affairs and planning from Virginia Tech. I've been working professionally as a planner since the late 90s. I am certified as a AICP certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners. I've been working throughout the East Coast, but specifically here in Southwest Florida since 2007, both for private consulting firms, and also I worked for publicly with Collier County for several years. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to.
No, that's fine. You can proceed.
With me today, I have obviously Neil Montgomery with Pavese Law Firm, Daniel Hartley, who was the professional engineer working on the case. Bruce Lehman is our environmental specialist, and Norm Trebilcock, who is handling the transportation. The applicant in this request is Pritchett Development Company. Initially, when the application was made, there was a contract purchaser. That contract has been backed out of, and the Pritchett, the current property owners who did sign the affidavit of ownership, and are proceeding with the application, so we're representing them. This is the property. It's 74.11 acres outlined in red. The area outlined in yellow is the balance of the Pritchett farm, which is where the Eagle camera is located down on Bayshore. That is outside of where the portion to be rezoned is. The property is bound by Williams Road on the east side. To the north is a private street, Boyd Road. On the west is Daughtry Creek, and a 10-acre homestead property. I believe Mr. Busby, who owns that, is here today in the audience. And there is also frontage on Samville Road. The request before you is to rezone the 74.11 acres, existing pasture land, from the agricultural and mobile home districts to residential plan development in order to allow for up to 250 single-family dwellings, as well as accessory recreation and amenity uses. Just kind of zooming out a little bit, regionally, some public services that are in the area. The property is immediately to the east is Bayshore Elementary. There's also some churches. Bayshore Elementary and the Bayshore Soccer Complex are located adjacent to the subject site. There is a fire station within a little over a mile from the property on Slater Road. Some other schools nearby include the North Fort Myers Academy for the Arts and Jake Holland English Elementary, which is off of Business 41, which also is the location of the North Fort Myers Library and Community Park. Currently, the property is within the suburban future land use designation. All of the property around, with the exception of the school and soccer complex, have the same suburban future land use designation. Zoning is split. Most of the property is zoned agricultural 2. There are portions along the eastern boundary adjacent to Daughtry Creek that have some mobile home zoning. Adjacent zoning in the area, all the blue areas are recent planned developments that have been approved probably within the past decade. There is some other some commercial uses at the intersection of Williams and Bayshore Road. With that, I'm going to quickly turn it over to Bruce Lehman to talk about the environmental conditions on the property.
Good morning, I'm Bruce Lehman. I also have not gone before the hearing examiner in quite some time, so I don't know if I need else.
Okay, if it's all right, can he just summarize his background? So
Sure.
Real simple. I got a bachelor's degree in zoology, master's degree in marine science, started professionally as an environmental consultant in 1992 and been doing it since. very condensed.
Way back when, so
Very condensed, but yes, by 2008, I had 40,000 acres of listed species survey experience and 70 miles of wetland lines, and it's only gotten a lot bigger, the numbers. So anyway, this property is environmentally very simple, as you can see. Of the 74 acres, better than 80% of it is pasture, as was described by Mr. Pritchett, labeled as 211 on the map, the flux map. In the northwest corner is the only indigenous habitat. It's oak hammock, the 427. Was at about just over an acre and a half. The western boundary of the property, except for the inholding, is Daughtry Creek. It's a deep creek, steep-sided. The creek is pretty much limited to the top of bank, and that was picked up by surveyors at the top of bank, and that's what the line of the 511 flux category is. So that is the top of bank of Daughtry Creek, wetland/surface water. And during the listed species survey, I was able to find 9 gopher tortoise burrows, which, if you follow the state suggestion, that means there's about 5 gopher tortoises on site. At some point in the future, at the owner's discretion, there's enough land on the property that there could be a relocation permit through the Game Commission to either keep the tortoises on site or to move them off site in coordination with the Game Commission, FWC. The blue dots on there that says power poles with woodpecker cavities, those had significance at one point because they could be potential nest sites for the kestrel or for the bonneted bat. However, they are associated with electric utility, and those power poles have been replaced. So the holes no longer exist. So those pretend like those blue dots don't exist. And then there's heritage trees. There's a bunch of them in the 427 oak hammock in the northwest. There are several along the road along the north, which are landscape trees, and then there are a few of them dotted within the property, and they would be addressed at a later point, I believe, during development order review. And that's, in a nutshell, that's encompasses what the environmental.
All right, so I was reading the staff report, and I got the impression that some of the heritage trees would be preserved. Which ones?
There's 24 of them in that oak hammock in the northwest corner. That entire oak hammock is being preserved per the MCP.
And then the rest are going to be removed?
I believe so. Dan, is that right?
I'm just looking at your site plan.
Yeah, Dan, our engineer, Mr. Hartley, could discuss that further when he comes up. Yes.
So how many are in the preserve?
24. And there is another one in the very, very, very southwest corner. I suspect that would be preserved as well, but the remaining of them, Dan can speak to that.
So the creek is on the property, and then it's off the property, and then it kind of comes back onto the property?
Can I point to it?
Sure.
Right. Okay. See this, whoops, sorry. This boundary here is the top of bank of the creek, all the way up to here, and then it's, this is the out parcel, but you can see kind of the corridor of the creek, and then this boundary here is, again, the top of bank of the creek. So the creek is this side of that yellow boundary. The property limit oftentimes goes right up the center of the creek, and then these guys would have the other.
I see. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
And I think we hand it back to Chris unless you have other environmental questions.
Not right now. I might
Okay.
come back to you.
Okay, very good.
This is the master concept plan for the residential plan development. You can see the orientation of this has been shifted, so now north is to the right side of the screen. So the preserve area would be at the top right of this image. The proposed master concept plan has typical residential subdivision with stormwater management lakes. There's an amenity tract located by the northern entrance to the development. There are 2 accesses access points. One lines up with Samville Road, and then the southern entrance is located between the church's entrance, which is on the opposite side, and where Samville and Williams split.
So it's the main entrance to the community is going to be across from the amenity center?
Yes, the primary entrance or the larger entrance into the community would be the northern one off of Williams Road.
And the southern one is available for exit?
We noted on the site plan that there's an option to gate it. So if it is gated, that would be egress only and then emergency service. And the northern one would have the main entry gate. But if it is not gated, then they would both be open and fully accessible at all times.
Okay, and then would you please explain to me, this FEMA floodway dips down? I have no problem with it, but there's a question in my mind. So is this basically just going to be left as open space?
Yeah, the property has floodway designation, but from the National Flood Insurance Rate maps. So yes, that's going to be untouched. It'll be left as it currently is. There'll be no grading
So
or
pasture, just open?
it will just be
flat
open
lands.
space. Yes.
So there's like a development pod here on the left top that backs up against the lake. And then I'm not clear exactly where it ends, but so the lake and everything around it and this lake, this is all open, for lack of a better word, right?
Correct. It would be open space. This is in color, so it kind of shows those different pods a little bit better and maybe a little clearer to see. Plus, it reorients everything the correct way. So the yellow is residential, and yes, there'll be residential with their stormwater management lake to the west or rear of those lots. And then you'll just have natural area where the floodplain is protected. The creek is in its current state.
Okay, my next question is this FP&L easement area. Now, are there, I've already done a site check, I'll have to go back, but the overhead power lines didn't register with me, I guess, when I went through, it just blends into the background, I guess, but,
There are overhead power lines.
okay, and they bifurcate the property.
Correct.
And so this area will basically be green space, for lack of a better word, except for the road that's gonna cross over it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
The development regulations that are proposed for the RPD are consistent with other planned developments within the community. These are minimum requirements. The intent is to provide for a variety of lot sizes within the community, but these would be the minimum standards. And then there is one deviation proposed within the request, that is for to provide a circular cul-de-sac turnaround. These are small hammerheads that are being proposed in lieu of the paved cul-de-sac. They would not exceed 150 feet in length, which is consistent with the fire prevention code for turnaround movements for fire trucks. We did present this to the North Fort Myers Fire District and got a letter of no objection from the district.
I would note that that deviation's been approved in a lot of Pulte and Neal community projects.
So those circles identify the 4 locations where that deviation would apply. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Norm to address traffic, and then we'll also have Dan come up briefly to discuss some engineering, stormwater.
Good morning. My name is Norman Trebilcock. I'm a professional engineer, a certified planner, and professional traffic operations engineer, and have over 34 years of local experience. And I've testified before the hearing examiner. Our firm prepared the traffic impact statement, or TIS as we often call it, and my resume, I believe, has been provided and is on file as well. The TIS was prepared consistent with the LDC, Lee Plan, and Lee County Administrative Code. And just a few of the highlights, you have the more detailed study, but some of the highlights is it's 250 units, and they'll add less than 300 peak hour vehicle trips, two-way trips. The analyzed Bayshore road segments are projected to operate with an acceptable level of service, standard C or better, under 2029 background conditions. None of the analyzed segments are expected to be significantly impacted by the project in 2029, which is a build-out period from planning horizon.
So build-out is anticipated to be 2029.
Right, from a planning, from planning horizon. This what typically would do for
5-year build-out.
5-year build-out period. Yep.
Might go faster from the looks of development in North Fort Myers.
Oak Creek is moving along quickly.
Yeah. None of the analyzed links are projected to operate below the adopted levels of service standards, which is LOSD, with or without the project at 2029 future conditions. Anticipated conditions are level of service C or better. The project doesn't create any significant or adverse impacts to the area roadway network, and we didn't warrant any turn lane improvements at the proposed access points or project access.
Oh, you've
locations.
already conducted your site-related improvements?
Just kind of as a preliminary evaluation for the site, and then we do that, to your point, at time of development order as well. But we did kind of look at that preliminarily, and staff did
So
have
at
us
this
look at
point,
intersections.
You do not anticipate the need for a turn lane to accommodate the entrance?
Correct, yes, ma'am. And that's really kind of a summary of everything, if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dan Hartley. I'm with Peninsula Engineering. I'm a professional engineer, and I assisted with the preliminary drainage and utility design and coordination for the project. I have testified before the hearing examiner before. It's been multiple years. My background, I have a Bachelor of Science in Engineering from University of Florida. Professional engineer, been working in Collier and Lee counties since about 2007. Done numerous projects in Lee County and Collier County. I'm happy to answer any background questions you have. Otherwise, I can give you a brief overview of drainage and utilities for the project.
Yes, please do.
I'll start with utilities. Are relatively simple. The project's in the Lee County Utilities potable water service area. Letter of availability has been provided stating that Lee County Utilities has adequate capacity to serve the project.
So are there like mains on Williams or?
There are multiple mains in the area. There are multiple mains on Williams. There's a main running down Boyd Road, down Samville.
Okay, so serving the school, so you just tie into that?
Yeah, and it's possible that offsite improvements may be warranted at the time of development order. That really would be coordination with LCU at the time of final design, but adequate capacity is available to the site and near the site. I don't anticipate for water any major improvements, offsite improvements needed. There's a 12-inch main near the site, and that's a relatively big main, and the demands associated with development are likely, that 12-inch main is likely very capable to serve them. That language in the letter is pretty typical from LCU, just indicating that it's not a guarantee that off-site improvements wouldn't be required, because they often are. But again, I don't anticipate them for this site for potable water. Projects in the Florida Governmental Utility Authority service area for wastewater. They're similar to the Lee County letter. They've indicated adequate capacity to serve the project, but off-site improvements may be required to serve the project. And there are force mains adjacent to the project that might be able to serve the site, but preliminary discussions with the FGUA have indicated that there may be some off-site extensions warranted, again, which is typical for development. And further coordination with FGUA at the time of development order permitting would determine, where they would like to connect to the project and any off-site improvements that are warranted.
So there's no chance this is going to be served by septic. It's definitely going to connect one way or the other.
That's correct.
Either there's
it will be
capacity or you're going to enhance.
That's correct. No septic. It must be served by the utility. So that's potable water and wastewater. For drainage, the project's in the Daughtry Creek drainage basin. It's also referred to as the tidal Caloosahatchee. As we previously discussed, it's directly abuts Daughtry Creek, and the project outfall would be to Daughtry Creek, which has direct conveyance down to the Caloosahatchee River. We've indicated the general existing and proposed drainage patterns for the site on this plan. The red arrows are really indicating the existing drainage pattern. The site does have a very evident fall in elevation from north to south, which follows the overall drainage trend for this area. And that existing site generally flows to a system of ditches that encompass the property and or the site directly outfalls into Daughtry Creek in the existing condition. So the proposed outfall would mimic the existing conditions as far as where it's flowing.
Right, but the site design is going to remove the ditches, right, and replace it with the stormwater management system?
So the existing ditches that are indicated in the blue arrows around the property, those would be, the drainage conveyance would be maintained with the proposed project. Certain portions.
Are you talking about the blue with the squiggle, or?
Yes, I am. Sorry, I didn't clarify that. But right now I'm referring to the blue with the squiggle. So those indicate the existing ditches on the perimeter of the site. And those convey, in addition to collecting some flows from the property, they also convey off-site drainage. So that would need to be maintained with the proposed development. And it would either, have the existing ditches remain as they are today, or replaced with, for example, culverts at the project entrances with adequate capacity to maintain those flows. But because those drainage ditches do convey off-site flows, they will be maintained with the proposed development. The drainage conveyance will be maintained.
Please walk me through the way the stormwater runoff is going to occur on this property.
I will. Sure. Thank you, Norm.
And you can approach, that's fine too.
Okay.
Either way.
So again, I kind of walked through the existing drainage patterns on the site. With the proposed development, again, these would generally remain. Might replace them with culverts just to accommodate the project entrances, etc. The on-site drainage system, as you can see, that right now it depicts 3 lakes. So there will be sub-basins that collect site drainage and convey into one of the 3 lakes on site. The lakes will be interconnected either by pipes or control structures, and really convey the water from the north to the south. The ultimate project outfall is anticipated to be near the southwest corner, which is kind of where the drainage tends to go, and where this existing conveyance also outfalls into Daughtry Creek.
So in terms of site runoff, it's going to be pre-treated in the swales and eventually the lakes, right?
So the swales, there would be no direct,
Or dry detention areas. Maybe I called it the wrong thing.
Right now it's depicting wet detention areas, which are the lakes.
Okay.
So all the development runoff would be conveyed into the lakes for treatment. Of course, they would be conveyed from lake to lake. And then, there would be a control structure which provides that appropriate water quality and water quality treatment and attenuation, so it limits the discharge rate before it lets the water out into Daughtry Creek. And then there would be no direct discharge of these areas into this drainage ditch before it's treated. It's all going to be treated into the system and then discharged to Daughtry
So
Creek.
what's in that drainage ditch then?
It's simply, so for example, this park and these residential areas right here, these are not systems that are constructed with their own water quality system. The park may be, but like these residential areas would outfall right to that ditch in the existing condition. And then that ditch is just, it exists and conveys flows all the way.
So is there any pre-treatment of that before it enters Daltrey Creek?
Of the residential areas,
Well,
I would say no.
Once it hits your on-site ditch?
Yeah, so to clarify, this is not an on-site ditch. It's on the property, but it would be separated from the proposed project by a perimeter berm. So this is Boyd Road here.
Right, so I'm going back to my question. What treatment, pre-treatment is going on in that area?
In the ditch?
Yeah.
I mean, it would provide treatment, but it's an existing system that simply conveys off-site flows. And it does convey the current project flows. This property, as Mr. Pritchett indicated, has been farmed for decades.
Right, but
So
that's in
pretty-
its undeveloped state. Once you
That's correct.
improve this, it's going to have an urban surface water management system. It sounds like it's going to be contained because you're going to do a berm, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. There'll be a berm that separates the project from the existing ditch along the entire perimeter. It would also come around the lakes, between the floodway and the lakes. It would cross the FPL easement, come between the preserve and the site, and then become between the site and the drainage. So it would be wholly encompassed by the berm, which separates the proposed project from the offsite conveyance and contains all stormwater outfall into the proposed urban stormwater treatment system.
So basically, the outfall condition is going to be no worse than existing and potentially better.
I would say better because in the existing state, there is no treatment and it's an agricultural property, so runoff is allowed to go right to this ditch. And in the proposed system, it would be a constructed water management system with a minimum, or not minimum, but with a required water quality and attenuation provided. Happy to answer any further questions on drainage or utilities, and I don't know if you had any remaining questions on the heritage trees or floodway. Bruce kind of pointed to me while he was discussing, so I'm happy to answer any remaining questions you may have.
My only question, and I'm not sure you're the right person to ask, is regarding the maintenance of this indigenous vegetation area. Is there an access to that area? Is there some requirement that it be maintained? What's the?
It will require maintenance. I can speak to it, and Bruce or Chris, I mean, happy to follow up. You please feel free to follow up after I speak to it. So we actually do indicate on the MCP access easements from the right-of-way to get to the indigenous preserve, as well as to get to the natural waterway buffer area and drainage easement that fronts Daughtry Creek. So there, as an LDC requirement to provide a 50-foot natural waterway buffer with no development, which is provided, and also a drainage easement because it's along that natural waterway. So we do have access easements provided to those easements from the proposed site. So those would be responsibility of the developer to maintain.
Because I noticed that there was no condition addressing that, so I'm wondering what's normally the protocol on that? Is it incorporated into the HOA docs? Is it?
I would say typically yes for a subdivision. The HOA and the Declaration of Covenants speaks to required maintenance responsibilities of the on-site preserves of which the indigenous area would be considered, as well as required maintenance of the drainage easements and buffers on the property.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. Mr. Hartley, do you have to follow the South Florida Applicant Handbook when you design your water management system?
Yes, we do.
And as part of that, I think it's Chapter 12, but it has a section on a responsible legal entity.
That is correct.
So under the water management rules, as well as Chapter 10 for the county rules, do they both require an entity that's responsible for long-term maintenance that can impose an assessment and ensure that that work is done?
That is correct. And part of the application procedure is to prove that the entity has the capacity to perform such maintenance in perpetuity.
And I know the hearing examiner seems to express concern about the off-site flows. Is it a commonplace to design a system to separate the on-site system from the existing off-site flows?
Absolutely, yes, it is.
Because you don't want to, I'm assuming, you don't want to interfere with the water quality treatment and the drainage path that's designed for the on-site urban system by introducing off-site flows.
Generally, yes. Part of both the county development order process and the South Florida Water Management District ERP process is to confirm that you are not impacting off-site conveyance. And in this case, generally, we are completely separating on-site drainage from off-site conveyance, just with some minor improvements to provide conveyance across the project accesses.
So the capacity of the conveyance and the existing water quality of the off-site conveyance won't change.
That is correct.
And since there is a floodway, and it kind of has an odd design with that sort of like triangular shape, is that just based on the topography of the land?
The FEMA floodway is as identified in the FEMA FIS studies and their modeling. So the limits of the floodway are as determined by FEMA. And with this proposed development, there are no impacts to the floodway proposed in this area. The perimeter berm would separate the project from the floodway, so the characteristics of the FIS study and model would not be impacted.
Okay, thank you.
So is the berm going to hug the perimeter of that flowway, essentially?
Of the floodway in this case, generally yes. You know, there's probably a gap between the edge of the modeled floodway and where we actually start grading. You know, there's room in the site plan to not have to go up directly to the edge. So generally, yes, it would. The berm in this area would come between the lake and the floodway, staying out of the floodway.
And this Boyd Road, I don't know if you're the person to ask. It almost looked like it was gated to me when I went past it. It's serving only the
Believe that
residents to the north?
it is a dead-end street with a handful of single-family zoning. I don't know that it's gated here or here. I know there is a gate to single family residence in this area,
Oh, maybe that's what I saw.
perhaps, and I know there's a gate at the FPL access road as well. But Boyd Road is at least partially on the project property, and there's an existing easement for the roadway.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
The project is consistent with the Lee plan. As previously noted, it's within the suburban future land use designation. That designation would allow up to 6 dwelling units per acre. The 250 units on this roughly 75 acres equates to 3.4 dwelling units per acre. The development would allow for a contiguous and compact growth patterns. It's located where there are existing urban services that are available to service the site. It helps to limit urban sprawl. It is located adjacent to public utilities and will connect to public utilities, as well as immediately adjacent to a elementary school. The development, as noted, will protect environmentally sensitive areas. We are keeping out of the floodway. We are maintaining the buffer to Daughtry Creek that's required. And we are preserving the patch of indigenous oak hammock in the northwest corner. This is within the North Fort Myers community plan area, and the project does meet the goal and objectives of that plan. It allows for a mix of housing types. which is desired in areas that are proximate to schools and other urban services. The development is also consistent with the criteria and review, the findings and review criteria of the Land Development Code. As just noted, it's consistent with the Lee Plan. It meets LDC and other county regulations. The residential uses that are proposed are compatible with existing uses and planned uses in the area. The development has sufficient access onto public roadways, and it does not have a negative impact on the transportation facilities. Again, it does not adversely affect environmentally critical or sensitive lands. It will be served by urban services. The single-family residential is an appropriate use, and the one deviation that is being requested has been supported both by staff, the North Fort Myers Fire District, and is consistent with similar deviations that have been approved by Lee County. We did review the staff report and had no objections really. There was some clarification language as noted in the 48-hour letter, and I did tweak it a little bit more since I sent the 48-hour letter after a further review. No objection.
After my own heart.
Sorry. No objection to the model home and real estate conditions. Within the environmental conditions, there was just some wording clarifications that we were proposing. One, clarify, and these are mainly to clarify timing between local development orders and vegetation removal permit. And staff is here, and if they have objections, we're happy to hear those. But these are very simple. So environmental condition CI, just clarifying that the preservation and restoration done would be in accordance with the LDC. Seemed most of the conditions kind of reiterated existing LDC provisions, so we were referencing that section of the code.
Right, I usually don't do that if it's covered by the LDC, so this may look a little different when you see it after my recommendation.
That's fine.
We're okay if you take it out. Since
Yes,
it's covered
right.
by the-
I feel like if the code is saying it, you know,
And then this section did change a little bit, but there were some repetitive language prior to issuance of development order kept popping up, both in the heading and the subheading. So
yes.
we clarified some of those. If you have questions on any of those, I don't know if you want me to read all this into the record.
Putting my own spin on it, so.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will close it up. We are here to answer any questions. We respectfully request that it be found consistent with the Lee Plan and the LDC, and favorable recommendation to
I
the
just
board.
have one question. You left me with a PowerPoint here and an MCP, and I just want to confirm, is this the same master concept plan that is part of the staff report, or has there been a change?
The only change would be the app client's name noted on
I see.
that. And I can send you a digital copy if that would help.
No, this is fine. I'm just asking because the one in the staff report is also marked January 2023. There's no more specific date. So, oh, wait a minute. Let's see. Revised. Boy, this is not old eye friendly. All right, 23. Okay, so I see this is last revised is January 29th, 2024. So this is the version that would have to accompany my recommendation rather than the staff report, right? I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm ready for staff.
Good morning. Sharon Badamchian from DCI zoning. My resume is on file. I was recognized as expert in land use and zoning. I would like to be recognized as such this time. Well, the request is to rezone for 74 acres from agricultural and MH2 mobile home to a plan development, residential plan development. The future land use is suburban, which allows between 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre, and they are proposing 250, which is 3.3 to 3.4 per acre. So the density-wise, they are okay. And the area is seen in like increased development. There are several projects we are working on. I personally am working on 3 separate projects in the area for rezoning. So the area is basically changing and turning into a residential area more than agricultural. The request is pretty simple. It's just a single-family residential. They are proposing only 1 deviation, and they have a letter of no objection from the fire district for the dead-end road. And there is nothing really special about the project. It's one of those regular residential projects. And they are in full compliance with all the requirements of the LEED plan and the land development code. And staff received only 1 phone call from the outside asking for a copy of the staff report. And also one person showed up owning this property, questioning, they have a house in here, questioning how they're gonna access their home. That's, right now they are using the easement here, power line easement to go there. And the question was, if they gate it, then how is gonna have access to his property? Which is more of a legal question than zoning question, since there is no, we couldn't find any access easement from there, and I couldn't find any other access easement to that property. With that said, staff recommends approval of this request and as proposed with staff conditions. And I believe staff has no objection to the changes to environmental conditions. And I would like to hear from the applicant about how they are going to accommodate the neighbor to the east, to the west.
Okay, thank you. We'll have them clarify that. Anything further?
No, that's all.
I
Okay,
just have one
thank
question,
you.
Sharon. Were you the reviewer on Bayshore 65?
Bayshore 65.
Yeah, the one
I have-
where Sandville went around it on the other side of Bayshore?
I have Bayshore 31, and I don't think I did Bayshore 65, no.
I believe the Madam Hearing Examiner had that case, though.
Did it already go?
Yeah.
That's on the south side of Bayshore though, right?
Yes, but Sandville went around the whole property. I believe you were the hearing examiner on that.
Right.
So this is a little bit less density than that is on the other side of the road.
Right, I think he's asking about access to the
Yeah,
property.
I
Okay.
know, but I was,
You're making a point that it's lower density.
yes,
Thank you.
and consistent with something else that was just recently approved.
No,
But I thought you worked on that.
no, we don't have a problem with the density. Density-wise, the project is fine.
So the property to the south, it looks like there's a lot of trees on, what is that property developed with? I couldn't really tell when I did my site visit. I saw that there were homes on the right side of Samville West. Is that single family directly accessing Bayshore?
There are some single-family lots that have frontage, I believe, on Samville Road.
There, yes, I'm talking about west of Samville.
Yeah,
south of the
I think
project.
their lots extend back into that, what you're seeing as wooded area. And some of those share a property line with the southern property line of this development.
Okay. Thank you, Sharam.
Thank you.
All right, Sharam has asked for clarification from the applicant regarding access to the privately owned out parcel there that's going to be surrounded by your project and the mobile home park.
Yeah, I'm going to refer to that as the Busby Homestead property. Mr. Busby is here as well today. Currently, the property includes one single-family dwelling that does have access that comes down and follows the dirt roadway pathway through the power line easement, FPL easement. There is not an existing access easement that we could locate in the title search for that. Obviously, it's been used that way for years and it would be maintained. There would be prior to any development, there would be a access easement granted to that property so that the easement would be maintained. I'm gonna.
And that's within the FPNL easement?
It
or
is, that would also, would require, there will be applications made to FPL because we're gonna have some improvements through there. Obviously, we have to do the roadway through there, but the existing way the property is accessed is they utilize this road, and there's a gate right there for the FPL easement that
But you're saying there's no access easement serving this
there's
property?
no recorded access easement, correct? So they would maintain that same driveway, and then we would have probably a gate prior to our roadway system. And it would either utilize the internal roads within the development or potentially continue to Williams Road as it currently exists. But we would maintain access for that property owner through the development.
So is there a condition regarding that?
I don't think you can,
There's
if
no
he's
condition.
using the FPNL easement without permission, I don't know that we need to have a condition to address something that seems to be a private situation.
Okay. Is there any further testimony and evidence from the parties?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I'm going to open up the hearing to members of the public. I'm going to start with Clinton Busby II. And if there's anyone else that is here that didn't fill out one of these forms, I'll make a second call. Thank you for coming, sir. Were you here when I administered the oath?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Just let you know, this is the first I've seen. So I'm sitting back there trying to look at all this. I haven't seen anything in paper form. Can I have the ability to somehow access this information?
Yes,
besides
it's
the
all
hearing?
public record. You can access it online or you can request hard copies.
Actually, the last statement here is what I was mostly concerned about, is my particular property right here. And first of all, I just want to let you understand is, Rick and I have been friends for a long time. He's been very gracious. This homestead here was my grandparents', and I bought it from the estate, and it was landlocked when I bought it. But for years, his dad and now Rick have always allowed me to access the property. Been very gracious, thank you, Rick. And so I'm basically representing myself just to make sure whoever this goes to in the future that I have some kind of legal access to go to my property. Because right now there's nothing legally
I don't
grant
have
it.
the ability to guarantee that for you. That
Yeah.
would have to be handled through some civil process, and perhaps if you are all on good terms, you can work together to achieve that. As it stands now, it sounds like you obtain access through that FP&L easement, maintenance road,
Right. Yeah, it's right here.
right?
When it comes down to it, I just want you to know that this, the project, I'm in favor of the project. I'm not, I hope it goes through. I want the best for Rick in this whole situation. I just want to protect my interest and make sure I have some kind of a
Right.
access to the property.
Just so that you understand, you're gonna have to make some affirmative moves towards securing that. Because I don't have a means through this hearing to grant you that interest in property.
Okay. And that if I have any, and that also would concern any water that I would have, maybe a spur that I could tap into, so I don't have to use a well system.
Okay, that, again, I don't have an ability to do that. You perhaps working with the eventual owner of this property that develops it, perhaps you can work something out. This is your primary residence?
Well, it's been, my family owned it since 1959. I bought it in the middle 90s from my family, and it's got a lot of sentimental value, you know. And the creek down there is just beautiful because it's natural. It's never been dug. It's basically what Rick and I talked yesterday. What the Colusa Indians would have seen when if they would travel that creek. That is exactly what they would have seen 500 years ago, which is just, I love that kind of stuff. But that's the main reason I came to this meeting, to make sure I have some kind of a, basically the access point, because I've had a great relationship with Rick, but I don't know who the next person's going to be.
Well, I urge you to take whatever steps, probably retaining counsel to secure access to your property.
Okay.
I mean, I might be able to say that they can't block your access. I don't know, I don't even know if I can go that far, really, because you're accessing through an FP&L easement at this point, so.
So how do situations normally like this, if there was not an access point for an easement, let's say the power lines weren't there, and this was being developed, how does the county or the government keep situations from this from? Yeah.
Well, this is, I mean, you would have to return counsel. I'm reluctant to give advice on that. I mean, I have thoughts, but I can't dispense legal advice to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other member of the public present this morning that would like to place remarks on the record? I invite you to do so now. All right, I'm going to close public input. We're back to the parties for any concluding remarks you wish to make, if you feel as though they're necessary. It sounds like we don't have to keep the record open for anything. All the documents are up to date. Sharam, are there any remarks?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Neil?
No, I don't believe we need closing
Okay.
remarks.
Well, thank you very much. It was a very comprehensive presentation. As I said, I've already been out to the site, but I will probably return now that I've heard this presentation, and I will then start working on my recommendation to the board. I am very nearly caught up, so this will be the very next case I turn to after I release what I have in my hopper. So hopefully it won't take very long, and certainly will be before the board takes its break.